tell me what you know about the tobacco company's purchase of the food industry, and like just lay that out because I don't really understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So RJR Reynolds and Philip Morris bought up General Foods and Kraft back in the day. And what they did was they said, we have an opportunity now to get into the food business because there was a decrease in the use of tobacco because of the cigarette type warning labels, the warning labels that they enacted, and people became clear on you shouldn't really smoke tobacco, it causes cancer. And so they were looking for another opportunity to diversify their portfolio. And so they said, well, we have all of this amazing research and that we've used to hook people to tobacco. Well, we can use the same research and the same scientists to do the same thing to food.
Now,
and we're going to buy the flavoring companies too, right? We're going to buy.
So that's a very serious allegation.
Yeah, which is true. It's 100% true. I mean,
which parts of it? Let's take it apart. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's easy to verify whether or not the tobacco companies bought the food companies, right? That's a matter of public record.
Right.
But the next parts of it, like, why do you think that's true? Like, I understand that they bought the food companies.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were tobacco companies and they bought the food companies is suspicious, right?
Right.
But then to say after that they consciously planned to use their scientists to addict people to fast food, let's say, or processed food, that's a different thing. So let me push back on that a little bit. Well, because...
Well, I mean, PepsiCo has a robot that has mimicked real human taste buds that they use for testing. Okay. And this kind of information is getting out now because we have a teenager in Pennsylvania that just filed a lawsuit. He's 16 years old, has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and diabetes. And he is suing 11 of the top food companies in America for his ailments, saying that the ultra-processed food diet that he was on made him that way because it was addictive in nature. And so as part of that lawsuit, they've come out with this evidence, right? And more is going to be discovered in Discovery, which I'm so excited about because when I read the lawsuit, it was over, 150 pages or something. And when I read it, it was like a horror movie because it showed even though it was in the exact pictures of what kind of technology they use to addict our taste buds and our senses to food. They showed the types of technology and the brain nodes that they actually attach to rats and to humans and to
people understand the
find
system pretty well now.
Right.
So, okay, but how would you distinguish delicious and easy from addictive, right? Because look, it's not surprising that food companies would attempt. Of course, they're competing Now, that's the thing, is that are they competing to please you or are they competing to addict you? And then the next question is, why are those different? Like, because the hallmark of addiction is maximization of short-term pleasure. Now, it becomes pathological when the maximization of short-term pleasure interferes with medium to long-term thriving, right? That's not a good combination.
Yeah.
But it's a fine line. The line between addictive and pleasurable that's a thin line. And so if I'm a food company and I want to make a product that's competitive, I'm going to try to make it as delicious as possible and as easy. Yeah. And then, so
that's where the moral dilemma comes in, right? For the food company, right?
Well, and the criminal dilemma for that matter.
Yes, for the criminal dilemma. I mean, when we have 38% of preteens ages 12 to 18 now being pre-diabetic when it used to be 0.
38%.
38%.
And the age range?
12 to 18 years old.
38. Yeah, that's terrible. It
used to be 0. Right?
Right.
We have to look at what's happening in the food supply. We have to hold someone accountable for it or create some type of regulation or change that would prevent this from continuing to go down into the dumps, which is where we're headed because right now we're last when it comes to
let me ask you another question then. Why not hold mothers responsible? Because one of the things that I think has happened too is that, and I don't know how to make heads or tails out of this, is that obviously what's happened is that food preparation has been taken out of the home and transferred to companies.
Yep.
Now, the advantage of that is that it's fast and cheap.
That's right.
Right? And easy. Yep. And there are advantages to that. Let's not forget. I mean, when people were preparing this would be particularly true of your home country. I mean, how many hours a day would women be spending preparing Indian food in the traditional way, like in a village, like all day? Right,
Yeah.
all day,
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah.
Now, and they were using a variety of different spices and a variety of different fermentation techniques, and they're very complex. Like, I know that one of the reasons that modern bread isn't as edible as traditional bread is because we use fast rising yeast, which speeds things up, which is a plus because we like time, but it also, it's less effective in breaking down the proteins, and so they're harder to digest, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all these traditional ways of making food were time tested. Fermentation, for example. Now, we've substituted ease and we've substituted industrial ease for home food preparation. Now, the upside of that is, well, that's 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day that are freed up primarily for women.
Yeah.
So then why go after the companies and why not go after the home and say, like, because if you're going to solve it,
Right.
you need to solve the
Right.
crux of the
Yeah.
problem.
And I mean, you could say that I'm doing both in a way, because I'm an activist on one side, but I also am a cookbook writer on the other, right? I've written 2 cookbooks where I'm teaching people how to make things faster with real food in the house that doesn't take all day, right?
Right,
And
right.
so, but the problem is the way our nutritional science gets divvied to the public and disseminated to the public, it's riddled with conflicts of interest. It creates a situation where, for example, you have these studies that come out and they say, candy is actually makes kid athletes better at their sports. This was a headline that went out, right? And it was a study funded by Mars and the company who makes M&Ms and the other American candy companies. Well, these studies come out not because we're going to believe them and we're going to call out the bullshit for them, but it makes it so that when a mother is in the line at a grocery store and their child is tugging at their skirt, grabbing those M&Ms and wanting to put them in the cart, they say, "Oh, it's really not that bad," right? It makes that situation so that they feel okay doing it, and that's how probably 90% of the information that gets sent out to the American public through media, through marketing, through magazines, through wherever we're listening, TV, is happening when it comes to food. The real information about how our food is full of chemicals and has been designed to make us overeat is not getting out. And so when you make such an interesting argument, and I love that you've delved deep into the psychology behind this, because it is true that the food companies want to make their food delicious. And
yeah, well, and I would say they've succeeded as well. They are delicious.
I mean, of course, but is it an unfair advantage to an American, to a human being, that a company can have that kind of technology, a robot that has taste buds?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you can say the same thing about social media.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
I know.
Right.
Well, you have industry-sized enterprises focusing on maximizing short-term pleasure for commercial gain.
That's right.
Well, that's rough, and it is a hard thing
but, I mean,
for the
how do
average family to compete with.
We can't compete with that.
Hard.
And mothers can't compete with that. We don't even stand a chance up against that science, because they're creating the 1/1,000,000th best part of a taste. The reason why nature is so important for a child to eat at a very young age and allows them to become a less picky child is because, take a blueberry. Sometimes they're mealy. Sometimes they're hard. Sometimes they're juicy. Sometimes they're plump. Sometimes they're small. Sometimes they're big. It's different every time you have a blueberry. Whereas if you go and get a blueberry Nutri-Grain bar or some other cereal, it's the exact same time every single time. And then they're using the 1/1,000,000th best part of a taste in a flavor component that they call natural flavor on the label, which could mean 1,000 different chemicals. Yeah. And if your kid grows up on that, they're going to be picky and hate real food, and they're going to end up in that 38%, pre-diabetes situation that we have right now with preteens. Whereas if you start your child on blueberries, real blueberries, they're going to have a chance, right? And so we have to hit it from both sides. We have to hold the food companies accountable. We also have to educate the public the truth about the food industry, the truth about nutrition, the truth about real food, what's been done to our food in the last 50 years, how to undo that in your own home, and how to get the products out there, and how to pick the right products that are using less, chemicals and additives so that you don't expose your family to this. And we're just at this critical phase right now where we have an opportunity like we've never had before because of the national conversation. And I have more hope now that we can actually change the trajectory of where we're headed than I've ever had in my entire career. And it's allowed me now to get back in the game, whereas before, again, I was worried about getting back in the game because I have children now, right? And it was the reason why I wanted to say no to doing the Senate testimony. But I'm so glad I did, because now we have created it's beautiful, because we've created this community of people, this movement of people that not only care about their own health, but they want to hold these companies accountable. They want to spread this message far and fast and wide, and it's taking over social media to the point where it's getting to people that I never thought would ever listen or understand. And that's the piece that I think is so important about the work that I do, is I want people to wake up. And so when I pick a certain company and I target some individual company for a chemical, it's not necessarily about that chemical or that company. It's about waking people up because of the injustice of what's happened to our food system.